Hello. Today I'm going to show you how to install your Seleno City, Smart Seleno City, Seleno Live, and Smart Seleno Live lawnmower by Gardiner system. A robotic lawnmower that mows the lawn automatically is of course there, but to make this job proper, we will need a um, a charging station first. Before we install the wires, we can have a look what's going on in our garden, of course. The first thing is we will need a power supply. We have to look where we going to install the charging station, because the charging station itself comes with three functions: to send control signals along the boundary wire, to send control signals along the guide wire, so that the product can follow the guide wire to specific remote areas, for example in the garden, and can find its way back to the charging station, and of course to charge the product. A power supply which is connected to the charging station and a 100 up to 240 volt power outlet is necessary, and a loop wire which is laid around the work area and around the object and plans that the product must not run into. The loop wire is used both as boundaries wire and a guide wire too. And we make a mark on the maybe blueprint or in your head where to put the charging station, the boundary wire and the guide wire, of course. So make a plan step by step. Make a mark on the blueprint where the guide wire connects to the boundary wire. That you have to see in your imagination, for example, or on the blueprint. Then, of course, we should fill holes in the lawn. We cut the grass before we install the product. We make sure that the grass is maximum 4 centimeters and 1.6 inches. Of course, the first week after installation, the perceived sound level when cutting the grass may be higher than expected. When the product has cut the grass for some time, the sound level is much lower, of course. So let's start now. We have to keep a minimum of 2 meters, these are 6.6 feet, of free space in front of the charging station. This is the first thing. And we keep a minimum of 30 centimeters, that are 12 inches of free space to the right and left of the center of the charging station. So let's have a look where we are going to have this. Oh, that's a good spot. We put the charging station near the power outlet. We put the charging station on the level surface, of course. The base plate of the charging station must not be bent. That's really important. And if the work area has two parts, we separate it with a slip slope, for instance. We put the charging station in the area with protection from the sun. If the charging station is installed on an island, we make sure that it connects to the guide wire of the island too. And then we are ready. So we have it. The place is there. And then we can put it together and start with the installation process. So let's start with the boundary wire. There must be a barrier of minimum 15 centimeters, 6 inches in height between the boundary wire and the water bodies, stalls, pedestrian place, or public roads. This will prevent damage of the product, of course. We do not let the product operate on gravel. We do not make sharp bends when we install the boundary wires. For careful operation without noise, isolation all obstacles such as trees, roots, and stones. The boundary wire should be put as a loop around the work area. Sensors in the product senses when the product approaches the boundary wires, and the product select another direction. All parts of the work area must be maximum 50 meters that are 50 feet from the boundary wires. To make the connection easier between the guide wire and the boundary wire, it is recommended to make an outlet where the guide wire will be connected. Okay, we make to make that, for example, an island or something else will help us in this option. Some obstacles are resistant to a collision, of course. For example, trees or bushes that are more than 15 centimeters or 5.9 inches in the height. Then the product will collide with the obstacle and then select a new direction. We put the boundary wires to and around the obstacles to make an island, for example. We put two sections of boundary wires to and from the island to close together. This will make the product run across the wire. We put two sections of boundaries wires in the same stack. Job's done. And of course, we can make a really easy process if we are going to make a secondary area, for example. We can form a secondary area if the work area has two areas that are not connected with a passage. The work areas with the charging station is then the main area. And of course, we can make a second area. We put the boundary wire around the secondary area to make an island. Okay, so that's a big island after this, but we can choose and use it as a second area. That's possible. The boundaries wire must be put as a loop around every work area. That means the A and B spot. So we put the guide wire after this process in the center of that. So take care in your mind that you have to handle this. We are going to send this boundary line around our garden. And if there are trees or something else in the area where our lawnmower should not be smashed to, then we can make an island. And this island is really easy to create because we are going to use the boundary cable and get this boundary cable to an island and form an island with that, come back and go to the station. So we can go and make a complete loop around our garden by using the boundary cable and come back to the power station. That means we have the go area with the boundary line on the left side of the station, and we come back with the line on the right of the station. You can dig the boundary line under plates or under edges or under the ground for up to 20 centimeter, or you use them by spikes and let them rest on the area of your garden completely. So you see, it's easy to install that, but of course you should make areas where there are dimensions. So we have to put the boundary wires around all of the work area, of course. We put the boundary wires 35 centimeters at 14 inches from an obstacle that is more than 5 centimeters, 2 inches height. That's a really important thing. And of course, we put the boundary wire 30 centimeters at 12 inches from an obstacle that is 1 up to 5 centimeters or 0.4 up to 2 inches height. We put the boundary wire 10 centimeters, these are 4 inches, from an obstacle that is less than 1 centimeter or 0.4 inches height. And if we have a paving stone path that is in the level with the lawn, we put the boundary wire below the paving stone. Really cool. The paving stone is minimum 30 centimeter, 12 inches wide. We use then, in this case, factory setting for driving past wire function to cut all the grass adjusted to the paving stone. And then we are done. We put the boundary wire in a slope. The product can operate in 35% of slopes. Slopes that are too sleeve must be isolated with the boundary wire. The gradient is present in calculation as height per meter, example 10 centimeter, 100 centimeters, and are 10%, for example. So, and then we have it with the boundary line. And don't forget that you have to make a little loop, so a little bit space for the wire to connect the guide wire with the boundary wire. That's really important. Think about that, because maybe you have not enough wire if you are do not think about this while you install the boundary wire. Okay, so let a little loop for the guide wire in your planning, in your assembling, in your installing process. And if you completed the boundary line, you go from the left side to the right side and come back to the station. You can cut the boundary line, because you will need the boundary line which is left or for using as a guide wire too, because the lines are the same, but the job is not the same. Boundaries done.